Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take source materials and, well, pull out those key insights for you without all the overwhelm. And today, this one's specifically for you, the learner you know, someone who really wants to get knowledge quickly, thoroughly, see different sides, and get those aha moments.
Right, without getting bogged down.
Exactly. So you've given us some Brené Brown excerpts from The Gifts of Imperfection. We've got a YouTube audiobook bit and a PDF section.
Good stuff to dig into.
Yeah. Our mission today is to really unpack her core ideas about embracing imperfection and what she calls living wholeheartedly based on these pieces.
Right.
So where do we start? There's a lot here.
Well, I think what jumps out first is how she talks about pattern recognition,
Yeah.
how our brains are just wired for it.
Yeah.
She uses those really down-to-earth examples like needing 8 hours of sleep or, tidying up instead of writing.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
Right. But it's not just fluff. It points to this basic human thing. We need to find patterns, make sense of things. It's how we operate.
And that totally connects to her background, right?
Yeah.
As a shame researcher, that's all about finding patterns in tough emotions.
Precisely. Looking for those common threads. But then she mentions this unexpected turn in her work. She's deep in all this data on shame, on not being enough.
Right.
And right there, in the middle of it all, she starts seeing these other stories, a different pattern, these wholehearted stories.
So not people who didn't struggle.
No, quite the opposite. People who were facing their stuff, their vulnerabilities, but living with this real courage and authenticity. It kind of shifted everything for her research.
Okay, so to get a grip on that, she made lists, like literally lists.
Yeah, pretty much. A do list and a don't list, just sorting the words and themes that kept coming up in those wholehearted stories.
Okay, interesting. What kind of things ended up on the do list?
Oh, it's quite powerful, actually. Things like wordiness, that core belief you're enough, rest, play, which we often dismiss, right? Trust, faith, intuition, tapping into something deeper, hope, authenticity being real, love, belonging, joy, gratitude, creativity even. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
A very aspirational one, maybe. So what about the don't list? I have a feeling I might recognize some of those.
Yeah, probably. That list had things like, perfectionism, that endless chase, numbing, avoiding feelings, certainty, needing all the answers, exhaustion, which we sometimes wear like a badge.
Yeah.
Self-sufficiency, that I don't need anyone thing, trying to be cool, fitting in instead of belonging, judgment, and scarcity, that feeling of never enough.
Wow, seeing them side by side like that, it really shows the tension, doesn't it?
It does. And Brown herself says she was, shocked when she saw it laid out. It hit her personally, not just as data.
So it wasn't just academic for her.
Not at all. It led to what she kind of jokingly calls her 2007 breakdown spiritual awakening.
Right.
Apparently, it started with her asking her therapist for just, some quick tips, how to get more of the do list stuff without getting too deep.
Which I imagine the therapist loved.
Yeah.
So this unraveling she talks about.
Yeah.
What does she mean by that? It sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, she uses that word unraveling instead of, say, midlife crisis. It's this idea of an internal pull away from the life you think you're supposed to live.
The shoulds.
Exactly. Away from the shoulds and towards what actually feels true for you. It's when those expectations start to kind of loosen their grip.
And it's not just about turning 40 or 50, right?
Yeah.
She mentions other triggers.
Oh, absolutely. Big life changes can kick it off. Marriage, divorce, becoming a parent, recovery, moving, kids leaving home, retirement.
Loss, trauma.
Yeah, or even just a job that drains your soul. Anything that kind of shakes you awake and makes you question things.
And it's not like flipping a switch, is it? She talks about it being messy.
Totally messy. It's growth, and growth is often uncomfortable. But the encouraging part she shares is that on the other side of it, she felt different, more real, more joyful, braver.
Like shedding layers to get to the core.
That's a great way to put it. Less about becoming someone new, more about uncovering who was there all along.
Going back to that do list play really stood out. She mentions Dr. Stuart Brown's work. Why is play so important? It feels optional.
Well, Dr. Stuart Brown's research basically says play is not optional. It's fundamental, like a biological need, even for adults.
Really?
Yeah. It fuels creativity, builds resilience, helps us connect. It's about doing things just for the joy of it, not for an outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. And she also talks about her dig deep button. We all have one of those, right? Just push through.
But she found that the wholehearted people, they could dig deep, but not just by gritting their teeth, more intentionally. Using practices like prayer or meditation or just setting clear intentions. It's about making conscious choices when things get tough, not just running on empty until you crash.
So mindful resilience, not just brute force. Got it. Now, she names courage, compassion, and connection as the big three, the cornerstones. Let's break those down. Courage, what does that look like in her view?
It's not about being fearless. It's about being vulnerable, showing up even when it's scary or uncertain.
Okay.
It's about letting go of needing everyone to approve and, crucially, owning your own story, the good, the bad, the imperfect, instead of hiding it.
Right. And compassion. Usually we think of that as being nice to others, but how does it work here? And how does it connect to boundaries? That seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does seem that way at first, but her research found this strong link. Compassion starts with yourself, self-compassion, being kind and understanding to yourself. And people who are genuinely compassionate with themselves, they're actually better at setting boundaries, saying no when they need to. It's self-care, which lets them give more authentically without burning out.
I see. You have to fill your own cup first, kind of thing.
Exactly. And then belonging. We all want that. Where does she say that comes from?
She says it's not about fitting in or changing yourself to be accepted. It actually comes from self-acceptance, from embracing who you are, flaws and all. Shame and fear get in the way, make us hide, and stop us from feeling like we truly belong. She has that term, shame storms, those really intense moments of doubt. What's the advice for getting through those?
The key, she says, is reaching out, sharing the raw story with someone who has, quote, earned the right to hear it.
Earn the right.
Yeah, someone you trust completely, someone who will meet you with empathy, not judgment or pity. Because shame loves secrecy. Bringing it into the light with someone safe is how you build resilience.
And she warns against calling certain people
Right.
who not to call.
Definitely. Don't call the person who might shame you more or just feel sorry for you or try to one-up you or tell you you're overreacting.
Right.
You need someone who's solid in their own worth, who can just be with you in it without trying to fix it.
That makes sense. And connection itself, how does she define that? Why is it so vital?
She talks about it as the energy between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When you can give and receive without judgment. When the relationship itself strengthens you.
And science backs this up.
Oh, yeah. Neuroscience shows we're literally wired for connection. Our relationships physically shape us.
So all those texts and likes, maybe not the same thing.
Well, she does caution that technology can sometimes be an imposter for connection. It looks like connection, but doesn't always deliver that real feeling of being seen and valued. And she also challenges that myth of self-sufficiency, thinking you have to do it all alone, being unwilling to ask for help or even receive it gracefully gets in the way of real connection.
Which ties into self-love and self-acceptance. She calls it revolutionary. Why revolutionary? And can we really love ourselves like we love others?
Well, it feels revolutionary because society often tells us to put others first, right? To the point of self-neglect sometimes.
Sure.
She mentions Justin Valentin and Renee Cobb, who explore this complexity. The takeaway seems to be that genuine love for others really needs a foundation of self-compassion. So, yeah, in a world telling you to put yourself last, choosing self-love is pretty radical and brave.
Okay, so what stops us? What are the big barriers to living this wholehearted way? She talks about the supposed tos and hustling for worthiness.
Those are huge. The supposed to are all those messages from society, family, everywhere about who you should be, what you should do. It can be overwhelming. And the hustle for worthiness that's driven by those inner critics, the shame tapes telling us we're not good enough, not successful enough, whatever enough, always pushing, proving. Shame, she says, is basically the feel of being unlovable.
But we can fight back, right? Develop shame resilience. What does that involve?
Yeah. It's about learning to recognize shame when it shows up, knowing your triggers, and then moving through it without letting it define you, holding on to your sense of worthiness. She stresses 3 things about shame. Everyone feels it, we hate talking about it, and it's rooted in that fear of being unlovable.
Are there practical ways to start building that resilience? She had some questions.
Yeah, really good ones to ask yourself, like,
Yeah.
who do I become when I'm feeling shame? How do I try to protect myself? Who's the one person I could actually call right now? What's the bravest thing I could do for myself?
Self-awareness questions.
Exactly. It's about understanding your patterns and finding the courage to share with those trusted people, remembering that core belief, I am worthy. She even suggests flipping the script. Be who you are first, then do what you need to do, and that leads to having what you want.
Authenticity comes up again here. It's not something you just are, but something you practice.
Right. It's a choice you make over and over. Choosing to be real, even when it's vulnerable, instead of putting on a performance for others, it takes practice.
Spirituality and hope also feature. How does she approach spirituality? Is it about religion?
Not necessarily religion, no. She defines it more broadly like a shared deep belief in something bigger than us. And she found it's a key protective factor for resilience.
And hope, not just wishing.
No, she sees hope as active. It involves setting goals, having the grit to work towards them, and believing you can actually do it. And the good news is, she says hope can be learned, often from parents who provide boundaries, consistency, and support.
What about gratitude and joy? They
Yes.
seem linked in her work.
Very linked. She found that joyful people actively practice gratitude. It's almost like gratitude opens the door for joy.
Oh.
She calls them both spiritual practices tied to feeling connected to others and something larger. And she differentiates happiness, often based on circumstances, from joyfulness, which is deeper, more spirit-based, fueled by gratitude.
But she also says joy and gratitude can feel vulnerable.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because we might worry it won't last, or something bad will happen. That's scarcity thinking again. She uses this lovely metaphor of joy being like twinkle lights, ordinary moments strung together by trust, gratitude, inspiration, faith.
I like that. Twinkle lights. Okay,
Yeah.
what about intuition and faith? She seems to redefine those a bit too.
She does. Intuition, she argues, isn't magic. It's our brain rapidly processing past experiences and knowledge, making unconscious connections.
So it's based on something real.
Yes. And needing absolute certainty actually blocks intuition. Her definition involves being okay with uncertainty and trusting different ways of knowing instinct, experience, faith, reason all together.
And faith and reason aren't enemies.
She says they don't have to be. It's our fear of the unknown that puts them in conflict. Faith, for her, is about embracing mystery, believing without seeing everything light out, and letting go of that need for certainty.
Creativity is another big one she tackles.
Yeah.
Lots of people think they aren't creative.
Right. She shares her own story of kind of shutting down her creativity as a kid, but her research basically says there are no non-creative people, just people who aren't using their creativity.
Wow.
And unused creativity doesn't just disappear. It can turn into things like resentment or fear. Creativity is how we make our unique mark, how we make meaning. It's essential. And comparing doesn't help because real creativity is original.
We keep coming back to play and rest.
Hmm.
She revisits them later, focusing on the societal pressures.
Yeah, she talks about how strange it felt, almost alien, researching people who actually prioritize play and rest. Because our culture pushes busyness equals worthiness so hard. Exhaustion as a status symbol.
Totally.
There's this weird fear of just being normal and quiet and happy. So she really pushes us to figure out our own personal ingredients for joy and meaning and make space for them.
And related to that maybe is cultivating calm and stillness.
Yeah.
That feels incredibly relevant right now.
Hugely relevant. She talks about her own struggles with anxiety manifesting physically and deciding to make calm and stillness the goal, not just damage control for anxiety.
How does she define calm and stillness?
Calm is about perspective, mindfulness, managing how you react emotionally. Stillness is more about quieting the mind and emotions, and she makes this great point. Anxiety is contagious, but so is calm. We can choose to heal with calm.
Oh, there's simple ways to practice that?
Yeah, small things, like the
Oh.
classic count to 10 before responding, pausing, identifying your triggers, and practicing non-reactive responses. Stillness might be meditation, quiet time, whatever works for you to just quiet the noise inside.
Meaningful work is another piece of the wholehearted puzzle. What gets in the way there?
Big ones are self-doubt, again, and those supposed to. What society or family expects your career to look like.
Right.
She says we need to name our fears, name the supposed to list, take away some of their power. And she challenges that whole what do you do definition of identity. She brings up / careers, having multiple passions or roles.
Embracing complexity.
Exactly. And getting over the self-doubt to claim your work, your talents. She quotes Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
That's powerful. And finally, she talks about laughter, song, and dance. Why are these included? They seem almost lighter.
Lighter, maybe, but fundamental. Think about it across all cultures, all of history. These are how we express emotion, celebrate, mourn, connect. She mentions Barbara Ehrenreich's idea of collective ecstasy.
Ah, that shared feeling.
Yeah, they create connection, remind us we're not alone. She talks about knowing laughter, like laughing with someone in understanding during tough times. Song is our personal soundtrack. Dance as pure expression, even if it feels vulnerable.
And we often hold back because we want to be cool.
Totally. That pressure to be cool, in control, it stifles these natural, joyful expressions. She admits she had to work on letting go of that herself.
So ultimately, choosing this wholehearted path, it's more than just self-help.
Yeah. She frames it as an act of resistance. Choosing authenticity, choosing worthiness. When the world often pushes conformity and inadequacy, it's defying those norms.
And it might feel weird sometimes.
Right.
Like brave and scared at the same time.
Exactly that. It's a messy, complex transformation, but the goal is a more vibrant, more alive way of being.
And just quickly, for anyone wondering about the research itself,
Right. She's a social work researcher using grounded theory. That means collecting tons of stories, interviews, letters, blogs, and letting the themes and theories emerge from the data, not forcing the data into pre-existing ideas. It's rigorous and it evolves.
okay, so bringing this all together for you, the learner,
Yeah.
this deep dive into the gifts of imperfection,
Yeah.
really offers a hopeful path, wouldn't you say?
Definitely hopeful. It's like a roadmap for letting go of who you think you're supposed to be and really stepping into who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that involves all these practices we talked about: self-compassion, authenticity, resilience, gratitude, intuition, creativity, play, calm, meaningful work, and connecting through things like laughter, song, and dance.
And it's not about being perfect at any of it. It's about the practice.
Exactly. It demands vulnerability, accepting imperfection, which, like we said, in today's world, that takes real courage. It's kind of a quiet rebellion.
So maybe a final thought for you listening? Thinking about those do and don't lists, which ones really hit home for you? And maybe, just maybe, what's one small thing, one tiny step you could take today, right now, towards embracing your own perfectly imperfect self? It's definitely worth exploring more Brené Brown's work if this resonated.